The parents of two sisters who survived the recent shooting rampage at Oxford High School in Michigan say they are seeking $100 million in damages in a pair of lawsuits Thursday, asserting that the rampage was entirely preventable. 4 students were killed in the November 30th shooting by the accused gunman, 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley. He's being held without bail after being charged as an adult.
We're going to hold people responsible for betraying the trust we put in them to protect our children.
Attorney Jeffrey Feiger appeared Thursday with Jeffrey and Brandy Franz, parents of Riley Franz, who was shot in the neck while her sister Bella was next to her at the time.
Today, we have filed a federal lawsuit, which I provided to you, alleging that the counselors, the teachers, the school administrators who failed the students at Oxford High School at virtually every turn, therefore violated the civil rights of the Oxford High School students who were injured and killed during this slaughter.
The 44-page lawsuit details Ethan Crumbley's threats of violence on social media, as well as his using his cell phone to search for ammunition, which, according to prosecutors, was observed by a teacher. But after a meeting with school officials and his parents, Ethan was allowed to return to class. Meanwhile, James and Jennifer Crumbley have been charged with involuntary manslaughter for allegedly giving their son the gun as an early Christmas present and then ignoring warning signs that he was planning a shooting at the school.
A U.S. appeals court has rejected Donald Trump's bid to withhold records about January's deadly attack on the Capitol. A 3-judge panel ruled on Thursday that Trump had provided no basis to withhold the documents and must cooperate with the House of Representatives probe. The committee is investigating any role Trump may have had in fomenting the violence of January the 6th, when a mob of his supporters stormed Capitol Hill and tried to block congressional approval of his election loss to Democrat Joe Biden. Trump had argued that the materials requested were covered by executive privilege, the legal doctrine that protects White House documents from being made public. President Joe Biden has previously determined that this should not apply in this instance, and that turning the records over to Congress was in the best interest of the nation. This is the second time a federal court has ruled against Trump on the matter. He now has 14 days to file an emergency request to the Supreme Court to appeal the ruling.
She sat down, and I'm very close to her, sketching away, and she takes out her paper and started sketching me back. And it's not the first time this has happened to me, so I wasn't thrown off by it. It did happen a few months ago with the co-defendant of Lev Parnas's. Really, he was kind of throwing me off a little because he was like turning around and sketching me madly. And maybe she just likes to draw. Apparently her sister does a little sketching in the courtroom. And I don't know why she started to do it, but what I'm very appreciative of is that she is looking at me, and I get that eye contact, which is the greatest thing for a courtroom artist, to have that, to be able to see a front view of somebody they're trying to sketch, instead of the back of a head and waiting to catch a moment. I tried to ask her lawyer that day after we were both leaving at the same moment. I said, what did she draw? She said, Jane, you know I can't speak to you about that. So I don't really know.
During my closing argument, I told the jury that I thought the evidence was overwhelming, that in fact Mr. Smollett had faked a hate crime and then lied to the police about it, and then compounded his crimes by lying to the jury during the course of this trial and insulting their intelligence. That's what I told the jury in my closing argument. With the resounding verdict we just received from this jury after one day of deliberations, in which they found Mr. Smollett guilty of virtually all charges of doing exactly what we said he did, of reporting a fake crime to the Chicago Police Department as a real crime. That verdict was a resounding message by the jury that, in fact, Mr. Smollett did exactly what we said he did.
Now, let's talk about that night, man. When did you find out things got as bad as they did? Now that's the question everybody wants to know.
Yeah, it wasn't really until like minutes until like the press conference until I figured out exactly what happened. You know, even after the show, you know, you just kind of hearing things, but you don't know. I didn't know the exact details until, you know, minutes before the press conference. And even at that moment, you kind of just like, wait, you know, what? Like, you know, you just went through something, and it's just like, wait, what? You know.
So you didn't know people that actually passed away and stuff?
Nah.
Wow.
Until minutes before, you know, which is, yeah, you know, and the thing is like, you know, people pass out, you know, people, you know, things happen at concerts, but something like that, it's just like.
Yeah, people said they collectively heard folks screaming help every time you stopped the song to get your attention. Did you hear any of those screams?
Nah, man. And you know, it's so crazy because I'm that artist too. Like, you know, anytime you can hear something like that, you want to stop the show. You want to make sure, you know, fans get the proper attention they need, you know. And anytime I could see anything like that, I did, you know. You know, I stopped it like a couple times to just make sure everybody was okay. And I just really just go off the, you know, the fans' energy as a collective, you know. Call and response, and I just didn't hear that. You know, I got music, I got my in-ears, but I just didn't hear that. You know.